going all the way out to the switch, and it goes all the way up to Gallo Park.
My kids went to school with a lot of kids at their fathers, and they never came home either. And it meant a lot to us when this train car became available, because it's something of a touchstone that we have here in Kingston now that we can all pass on to the next generations, because today there are kids in high school who have no memory of those events. And in a way that's good, because children should grow up without fear. But they're not going to have that same sense of purpose that we all felt in those days afterward, when America stood as one. But here in Kingston, you can still come to this museum and you can see this train car and the other artifacts that the Port Authority graciously donated to us. And you can feel that anytime you want. When this car arrived in December, for weeks afterward, I don't know who it was, but there was at least one sheriff's department car that would run around in the parking lot and park there. And I could see the deputy, you could see him staring out the window, just looking at the train car there. I don't know who he was, but it meant something to him. And that one guy made it all worth it, because if it meant something to him, that means it means something to more than just one person. It means something to all of us. And I'm really proud that we were able to do that. And thank you all for coming out here today. State Senator George Amedore is here, and he'd like to say a few words also to welcome you. So if we could have a nice warm welcome for Senator Amedore.
It's staff, it's volunteers. What a great job. All the hard work and effort that you have been putting into this great museum. It is a work in progress, I know. But a few months ago, when the staff came and visited my office and we chatted about this day, their endeavor and their tenacity of bringing this car 143 to Kingston, they thought was, how can we possibly do it? And it was monumentous at the time, but the escort that needed to be arranged and the amount of time and the resources that needed to be put into this, well done. You have been very successful and succeeded in your effort, all to bring about what the day means to us. Let's not forget today, 9/11. Those who perished, we remember. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family members who lost a loved one. To our first responders, who as everyone was running out of the building in sight, they were running in, selflessly, for our safety, freedom, and what they know how to do, serve. We pay our respect and tribute to them. And to our military, we owe great debt of gratitude for our freedom, our liberty, and our security today because of their acts of service. So to the Trolley Museum, may we continue, as Erik said, educate our young that understand, that may not understand or may not have watched those planes go down in Pennsylvania, in the Pentagon in Washington, or in the World Trade Center, but that they will understand the significance of this car being here, the importance of having it here in Kingston to educate about our way of life, a country that was unified and that should continue to be unified because we are a people free. God bless you, and much success to this great museum.
All right, I'd like to ask the Honorable Steve Noble, the Mayor of Kingston. He's graciously agreed to come out and dedicate this car. This car hasn't seen the public since the morning of September 11th, 2001. When it arrived, the windows had been blown in by the force of the concussion from the collapse of Tower 2, and it had some body damage from rubble and steel structural components that had punched holes in the ceiling and in one corner of the car. After we put the windows back in, we found water inside the car from the rain, so we had to patch the ceiling. We don't really want to alter the car and restore it to its in-service appearance. We want it to remain as it arrived. So unfortunately, we had to put the windows back in. So the last people we know rode it in were 7 Port Authority police officers who were never heard from that day. They arrived on, they may not have rode in this particular car, but we know they rode in on that train. So no one was found, there were no bodies found. As everybody knows, the station was evacuated. Everyone got out safely. The people who came in on that train, except for the police officers, got out on the next train, and this one was abandoned in the station. Now that it's here, we'd like to have the mayor dedicate the car and then formally cut a ribbon to open it to the public, and then you all can go inside it and examine it. It's like a time capsule. If Your Honor would come up to the stage, please.
On behalf of the City of Kingston, I want to be able to thank the Trolley Museum. Last fall, when this train car here, I came down to watch it, and I think many of us were moved by the true effort of being able to bring together our community to watch this train car be unloaded, to be put on the tracks again, tracks that it hadn't seen in many, many years. To be able to now be here as a poignant memorial to those that lost their lives, but also to the rebirth of our community, and when we all came together post 9/11, and I think as we still come together today to help celebrate the lives of those and to continue to help remember those that serve each and every day, this car can help us do that. A personal story, I was here last weekend with my 5-year-old and my wife, and we came to the Trolley Museum and went on a beautiful trolley ride out to Kingston Point. We came back and we came inside and we looked around, and I walked my son up the steps and around the building, and he saw the NYPD car crushed. And he said, "Dad, what happened to that car?" And I said, "Well, a building fell on it." And I didn't really know what to say. How do you tell a 5-year-old what happened? But as he gets older, and as we continue to remember, we'll be able to do that. And so thank you, and I really look forward to dedicating this today here in the City of Kingston. So, thank you.
Hi everybody, and thanks for getting together on one of the many memorials and even celebrations that we're having today all over our area, all over the county. I hesitate ever to speak at 9/11 events. Usually if I'm given a microphone on 9/11, I just ask people to pause for a moment of silence. But in this instance, I want to talk just briefly about what trains meant to the World Trade Center. It populated downtown Manhattan every single day with literally hundreds of thousands of people. If you worked in New York City, chances are, if you worked downtown, you got to work by train. Most people did. So on 9/11, trains had an incredible amount of significance. Now, I happened to be very fortunate that day to not be in New York City, although I took the E train down many, many times to my office. But on that particular day, I was in Long Island. And we were in the middle of a town, Glen Cove, and we found ourselves working toward the train station with the rest of the town. And that is where people waited. from about 9:30 in the morning until well after midnight, some the next day and the next day and the next day, to see if their loved ones were coming home. That's how significant the trains were. PATH trains, Long Island Railroad trains, subways, Amtrak, Metro North. It really signified the reach of what was happening in Lower Manhattan that day and how much it affected all of our communities. So when you look at this train and when you think about this, just remember the connection that it has to this horrible cataclysmic event that happened in our area. But just think also about the significance that trains have had in almost everything in our life over the course of the past 175 or so years. So with that, I will close by asking you to join me, as I often do during 9/11 ceremonies, and just have a moment of silence and remember a loved one, remember a friend, remember anybody who's suffered a tragedy. That day we suffered a collective tragedy, and today we're promising not to forget it. So a moment of silence, if you will. Thank you.
As a final gesture before we close out with the mayor cutting the ribbon to open the car up, I'd like to just remember those who've lost on that day, the nearly 3,000 souls who never came home to their loved ones. That's a yellow balloon for all the people who went to work thinking that it was just another day. And a white balloon for all the EMTs that went into that building thinking they were people that were going to be helped and never came out. A blue balloon for all the police officers who do wonder if they're coming home every day, and those who didn't come home that day. And a red balloon for the 343 firefighters who finally got the big one. That's an inside thing for firefighters. Firefighters always talk about seeing each other at the big one.